Hey everyone! I'm recording this at the end of my day, looking back on everything that happened. It's been quite a wild ride, and I wanted to share it all with you while it's still fresh in my mind. Let me walk you through how it all unfolded. I woke up at around 8 o'clock, knowing I had to work later in the day. My mom surprised me with this amazing chorizo egg and rice burrito for breakfast. It was such a thoughtful gesture that I deeply appreciated it. Nothing beats starting your day with a homemade meal. After using the bathroom, I headed straight to the kitchen to make my morning coffee. Our family friend needed to get a doctor's appointment settled, so she headed out, leaving just me and my mom at home. We ended up having this really fascinating conversation at the kitchen table. We discussed how artificial intelligence is poised to take over many jobs and what that might mean for our economy over the next 10 to 20 years. It's one of those topics that's both exciting and a little concerning, you know? We're witnessing a massive shift that's going to reshape society in ways we can barely imagine. We decided we'd watch some videos about it together after finishing our morning tasks. I said I'd edit a video, and my mom planned to clean her room. Then we'd meet up back around 12:30 to dive deeper into the subject matter. But here's where my day took an unexpected turn. Instead of editing like I planned, I got completely swept away watching YouTube videos on all sorts of topics. Does that ever happen to you? You sit down with a clear goal and suddenly 2 hours have just vanished. First, I reviewed the video I recorded last night to see how it turned out. Then I stumbled across these fascinating videos about how AI can save thousands of hours by automating tasks, not just digital ones, but physical world tasks as well. This really grabbed my attention because I'm always looking for ways to save time. So I pulled out my phone and had a deep conversation with Claude 3.7 Sonnet about automation possibilities. It gave me some genuinely useful ideas. One suggestion I loved was creating a flowchart to stick on my wall as a visual reminder to stay focused instead of getting distracted, ironically, considering how I was procrastinating at that very moment. Actually printed it out and right away stuck it to my wall with scotch tape, though I'm thinking there might be a better method than tape. I have to admit, I never actually got around to that video editing, so I do feel pretty bad about that if I'm being honest. Around 12:30, my mom and I reconvened as planned. She offered to make me a turkey sandwich for the both of us, not just me, which I was happily accepting of. While she prepared those, I gathered some sides for myself. 3 mini pickles, some leftover sushi from the fridge, and a cherry bubbly to drink. Pretty eclectic lunch spread, if I do say so myself. We sat down with our food and watched this video about how AI is taking over the world. It raised some really thought-provoking points. They discussed universal basic income, the rapid disappearance of entry-level jobs, and how the technological revolution compares to the transition from the horse and buggy to automobiles. Except in this case, humans are the horse and buggy. After finishing the first video, I made us some macchiatos, because serious topics are always better with good coffee. Then we watched another video that covered similar information, but went a bit more in depth. Finally, it was time to head to work. I got ready while listening to some binaural beats to help center my mind, then headed out for my 2 p.m. shift. So I drove over to work and arrived a little off time, around 2 p.m., if I'm remembering correctly. After punching in, I checked the schedule board that shows what we're assigned to do during our shift, whether it's pushing cards, sweeping, or bagging. Turns out I had car duty for the first hour of the day. When I headed outside, I very much appreciated the weather. It felt like a very nice, breezy 75 or even low 70s temperature. It was extremely cloudy, more like partly cloudy, but with these incredibly intense winds. I felt like I was going to be blown away like a leaf while pushing those carts. The gusts were so strong that the carts would sometimes try to escape my grip. While I was out there, battling the wind and the carts, I had many thoughts, rummaging through that old mind of mine. For example, I was thinking about whether it would be better to create a strict daily schedule to follow, or simply have a wall poster listing potential activities that further my goals in life. That way, I could choose what order to do them based on my natural life rhythms. I'm leaning toward the second option because I've been trying the strict schedule approach for a good 5 years now, and it hasn't really worked out at all. I keep resetting over and over again. I was also thinking about budgeting and my living expenses, trying to figure out the best way to manage my money while wrestling with shopping carts in the wind. Multitasking at its finest. When my hour was up, I returned to the store, only to find every check stand already occupied by my coworkers. So I needed to find something else to do. I was just about to start on go backs when one of my coworkers needed to take their 10-minute break. This gave me an opening to bag for the next hour. While bagging with another coworker, they pointed out that my hair looked pretty raggedy from being blown around by the wind all day. And they said I looked like Albert Einstein. As we continued bagging, I made sure to greet each customer with a smile and a friendly hello. You know what makes our store worth its weight in gold compared to others? It's entirely human ran. No automated machines. If customers are going to see the same people working there every day, you might as well give them a friendly face. So that's what I've chosen to do. One of the more interesting conversations happened because of that Einstein comparison. We mentioned it to a customer, which led to a discussion about a theory Einstein didn't believe was real, but was later proven true. Apparently, it was about how things technically don't exist when you're not looking at them. Einstein famously refuted this by asking, "So if I'm not looking at the moon doesn't exist?" But according to quantum physics, in some strange way, that's actually true. It reminds me of how video games cull graphics and information when the camera isn't looking at something to save on system memory. Everything behind the camera essentially doesn't exist until you turn around. Pretty mind-blowing, if you ask me. The crazy stuff you discuss while bagging groceries, am I right? Eventually, it was time for my first 10-minute break, which I spent trying to meditate while listening to hemisync frequencies. The goal was to help sync my brain's left and right hemispheres, or at least attempt to. But I think it only really works if you have a completely relaxed body, and my problem was finding the perfect position to sit in the break room. I tried constantly straightening my back and adjusting my arms, but for whatever reason, the top spinal area of my back felt very tight and uncomfortable. All my mind could focus on was my back not being comfortable at all, rather than achieving any meditation state. After attempting to meditate during my break, I returned to the floor. I saw several co-workers bagging groceries, and I wasn't sure what to do next. I decided to handle some go-backs, returning items to their proper location around the store. While doing this, I suddenly remembered something important. I was the closer for the day. Usually, closers create the closing schedule that tells everyone what task to complete. But when I checked, someone had already made the schedule. This confused me at first, until I looked more closely and realized there were two closers scheduled today. The other guy who shared my shift had already created the schedule. Then I noticed something on the schedule. I was supposed to be collecting carts out on lot this whole time after my break. I had already been away for about 20 minutes between my break and doing go backs. If I hadn't checked the schedule, I would never have realized I was supposed to be outside the whole time. Not good. Always check the schedule after you return from your break, ladies and gentlemen. I immediately rushed outside and started pushing carts. As I worked, my mind drifted to ways I could improve my self-discipline and spending habits. I realize I don't know my full monthly earnings until the third week, which means I can't properly budget unless I have that information. I considered creating a complex budgeting plan with fixed amounts for rent, utilities, groceries, plus variable spending for eating out. But then I had a simpler idea. Since I already dedicate 20% of my check to savings, why not just allocate 5% specifically for casual spending? This would be much easier to track without making an overwhelming plan. When I returned inside, one of my coworkers asked if I could take their lot duty for the next hour. I agreed, because I actually enjoy being outside with the carts. I like the windy weather and the sunshine. While pushing carts, I passed the time by thinking of different songs and tunes to sing to myself. Though right now I can't remember any specific ones I was humming. I ended up staying on cart duty for about 12 minutes longer than I was supposed to. No other coworker asked if I could take their shift after my lunch break, and I happily obliged. I punched out for my lunch and drove home, where our family friend, who had the day off, had kindly offered to make dinner. She prepared pork and rice burritos with fresh tortillas, the kind you cook yourself on the stovetop. It was absolutely delicious. But then I got a little greedy. I decided to have a tortilla with peanut butter and jelly, plus coffee, and then her family friend offered me some chocolate-covered wafers from her workplace, which I couldn't resist. While enjoying this feast, I watched a new Red Letter Media, a members-only video of Simi and Jimmy reacting to a student film that was made that was basically a 3-minute retelling of King Kong that he and his friend Iggy Eggman Rodriguez were reviewed after watching. It was pretty funny. After that, I watched a YouTube video about Disney's latest Snow White remake, which was apparently not doing too well. The main actress reportedly dislikes the original source material, which seems like an odd choice for an adaptation. It sounds like Disney is trying just to get this movie out of the way as quickly as humanly possible. Before heading back to work, I had some cheese and jalapeno bread, which turned out to be a mistake. It did not agree with my stomach at all, giving me what you might politely call digestive issues. Probably never going to eat that again, and it made me a bit late returning from my lunch break. Work was quite busy when I got back. I took the lot for the first hour, and it was absolutely freezing outside, but I tried to make the best of it, and actually found it somewhat enjoyable. It certainly kept me awake. After finishing lot duty, my next task was taking out all of the trash from the front, the back, the restrooms, and the deli. When I returned, my manager wasn't happy with how long it took. There had been a rush of customers, and only the cashiers were available while the other closers and I were doing our closing duties. He told me I needed to be faster with those tasks. I decided to ask for my last break after that. I went upstairs and I actually consulted with Claude 3 Sonnet to help organize my journal into a more readable script. Exactly what I'm reading to you at this very moment. When I returned, I was bagging for my manager, who has a pretty interesting sense of humor. He told me about a Hooters manager who promised to buy a Toyota for the waitresses who earned the most tips. When the winner came to collect her prize, he gave her a toy Yoda, like the Star Wars character. The waitress was so upset she took legal action, but apparently a judge saw it as a silly joke, so she didn't win. I had my own amusing interaction with some customers later. A group of ladies were buying whipped topping from the freezer section. and I couldn't resist being a little cheeky. Where's the mayonnaise? You need mayonnaise with that whip so you can tell people, watch me whip, watch me nay nay, watch me whip, whip, watch me nay nay. They thought it was hilarious, and I even got a thumbs up from the cashier, which was great. As closing time approached, I needed to bring in all of the carts from lot, which I did when I had the chance. Then I continued bagging until all the customers were gone. Around 10:50 for the final stretch, I closed all the produce lines, and then I wiped down all 4 check stands well, not all 4, just 4 of the 8 check stands. Then I said goodbye to my manager, used the restroom one last time, and drove home. And now I'm here recording this video, looking back on my entire day. Thank you for listening to another day of my misadventures from Noah. Have yourselves a fantastic night, everybody.